Hello, I'm Alexia, and let me help you to take the fear out of birth with a mix of real-life positive birth stories and birthing experts sharing their wisdom. I'll also be sharing techniques for getting into the fearless birthing mindset. And join the Fearless Momship community for bonus podcast episodes, access to free birth preparation downloads, and loads more stuff to help you to prepare for a positive birth. Join today at fearfreechildbirth.com. Hello and welcome back to the Fear Free Childbirth podcast. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman, and welcome to episode 205. Now, on today's show, I've got a fabulous birth story to share with you. Today, I'm going to be joined by Lucy HG, and Lucy is going to be sharing with us her primal birth story because, yes, she went all primal on us during the final stages of her birth. It's a fabulous story that's a lesson in patience and just trusting in your body. And it really is a great story for you to listen to. But first of all, I have got some shout outs before we kick into the main episode. So first of all, I'd like to say hello to Liberty. Liberty and her husband have a toddler and they've just found out that they're pregnant again. And she has been downloading some of the free tools that I give away on the website. If you haven't downloaded any of the free stuff that I give away, then just go to the free stuff page. There's lots there for you to choose from. There are some free chapters for some birthing books. I've got some tools around due dates. I've got some healing exercises to help you get over some stuff. I've got packing lists. There's loads of really great stuff there. Anyway, back to the hellos, and then hello to Tora, who's planning on tackling her fears using the free 3-part video series, and she sent me her list of fears that she's hoping to work on. So Tora, I wish you all the best in your fear clearance. And remember, if you have any questions, then come and find us in the Fear Free Childbirth Facebook group where you can ask me questions. There are other birthing professionals there that you can also ask questions. That goes for anybody else, in fact, not just Tora. There is the Fear Free Childbirth Facebook group for the podcast. I've had some of my podcast guests stopping in there, doing some free Q&A time where you can ask some questions about the show, but also it's a great opportunity just to put any questions that you have around your pregnancy or birth, because there's a few people that will dive in and answer your questions. And then finally, a big hello to Lexi. Lexi writes to me and tells me, I've heard so many horror stories from friends about their labour experiences, which made me apprehensive and a tad terrified. After listening to all of the positive stories on your show, I've actually become excited to give birth, and I've become empowered that my body can actually do the things it does. This is fantastic news, Lexi. I am so pleased that I've helped you, that all my lovely ladies that are sharing their positive stories, that doing this is helping you to shift how you feel about birth. And I'm sure that today's story will only just add to that, because today's birth story really is lovely. So back to today's story. So like I said at the beginning, I've got Lucy HG on the show today. Now, Lucy HG shared her birth story with me a while ago now, because I was going to put it out in the last season of the podcast, but I just ran out of weeks. So I've had to keep it in the bag for this season. And as it happens, this week is the week of the first birthday of her little one. So happy birthday, Sebbie. So yeah, the story that you're listening to is now a year old. But anyway, so some of the great stuff that Lucy is going to share with us. She's going to share with us her pregnancy journey as well, because it's not been easy for her. She's had 2 miscarriages. So she's going to share with us how she handled that, how she dealt with it, and how she handled that first trimester of her pregnancy, in which we're hearing the birth story. She also touches on how grateful she is for her mother and how her mother talked to her about birth, which she really believes that helped her to prepare fabulously for her own birth. So I think it's a real lesson there for mums out there that maybe don't speak that positively about birth and what impact that can have on daughters. And also she talks about the use of language, how important it is to ask those around you to be mindful of the language that they're using when you're there and having to go through the demanding intensity of labour. So some really great stuff that Lucy's going to share with us. So I hope that you enjoy listening to her primal birth story. Here you go, enjoy. Hello, Lucy. Thank you so much for coming on the Fear Free Childbirth podcast. Welcome.
Hello, Alexa. Thanks very much for having me on.
Well, today we're going to be talking about your amazing birth story. And I say amazing because I think it was on the grapevine with the midwives in your area and other people heard about your amazing birth.
Yes, this is true.
So we're going to be talking all about that in a bit. But before we dive in and chat about that, just tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, Lucy.
Yeah, sure. So basically my name's Lucy HG. I'm the managing director of a company called KuKu Apps, and that's sort of like the daytime job. I'm very active. I like outdoor sports and action adventure sort of thing, mountain biking, hiking, that sort of thing. And basically generally quite a positive, happy type person.
Oh, well, fabulous. We like positive, happy people on this show. So thank you for coming on now. So thinking about your birth, but before, the first thing I want to ask you is this. How was it for you when you first found out that you're pregnant?
It was actually bittersweet because I'd gone through 2 miscarriages before that. So actually finding out I was pregnant was a bit of a, right, well, hopefully it'll work out, but I don't know, so I don't want to get my hopes up. So although it was a happy moment, it was also tainted with a bit of doubt, I guess, because of previous experiences.
So how many, if you don't mind me asking, how many miscarriages had you had?
2
Okay.
in the 2 years previous to finding out I was pregnant.
So, and how would you mind just sort of talking a little bit about those? I mean, at what point did you miscarry during those pregnancies?
They were very early on miscarriages, so it was way before sort of 12 weeks. But it affected me pretty badly. Looking back at it now, at the time, I just kind of got through it really. But looking back at it, it really did. Just affected all areas of life, really, from my relationship with my husband to how much I was working, which was a lot, to then actually just even socialising, and finding out other people were pregnant. And, I found it very upsetting to see pregnant women. And even though I was happy to find out people were getting pregnant and it was all successful, it was really hard going for me, to be fair. Really hard going.
So, so you'd been trying for a while to get pregnant?
For 2 years, basically, So, and in those 2 years we'd had the miscarriages, and basically what had happened was with the first miscarriage, I couldn't face trying again, to be fair. So we kind of took it was probably nearly 12-month break from trying. And that's when I kind of went into myself and worked silly amount of hours and kind of lost touch really with things. Without realising, and then eventually I kind of thought, right, this is silly, we need to drag myself out of this, and we tried again, and that's a few months later when I got pregnant and I miscarried again. But by then I kind of knew how to deal with what I was feeling, and so we just got straight back into it, and unfortunately we had positive things happen. So, but yes, it was also about the sort of the trying to cope with the physical side of things, as well as the mental side. So obviously your body, even though it's early stages of pregnancy, your body starts going through a lot of changes. And in my mind, it was about, well, if I'm pregnant and then it all goes pear, my body kind of, starts adjusting to that pregnancy, and then it's got to go back to not being pregnant, which was, it's quite hard.
So when you say you'd figured out how to deal with it the second time round, what could you just sort of talk a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure there's women that are listening that might be struggling with that, and that you've got some advice to share.
I suppose I'd identified how I felt and identified what triggered me having little breakdowns, I guess. So I'd be able to work it out. So I don't know, for instance, say in a social situation, when I first miscarried, and I don't know, turn up at a friend's gathering, and I'd find out, so and you get told amazing news, somebody's pregnant. I'd literally kind of fall to pieces and have to excuse myself and go home, that thing. Or if I knew that somebody was pregnant and I was going to go in somewhere and I knew there'd be a pregnant lady there, I would probably throw a bit of a wobbler at home and kind of go, I don't want to go, I can't face it, And then the second time round, I was a lot. I suppose I knew how I would potentially react, and therefore I could work on it. And maybe I'd have a little cry before I went out. But then I'd kind of dealt with those emotions before I faced the situation. If that makes sense. So, and I think also my husband learnt to read me and learnt to kind of cope and help me out with how I was going to feel when faced with these situations.
So take us now to the pregnancy where you were. So that first few weeks then, sort of going into the pregnancy where you were bittersweet, like you described it. Tell us a little bit more about that, those first few weeks.
Well, it's that sort of, a lot of people, well, everyone around you, close friends and family were over the moon. And obviously my thoughts were, well, yeah, that's great, but we don't know what's going to happen. We need to get to the 12th week. We need to get to that scan. And up until now, we'd not made it. We'd not made it that far. So that was pretty hard. And then, strangely, I physically, I started feeling morning sickness, which obviously it doesn't only happen in the morning. And that was quite strange as well, because I'd not felt it really that badly the previous 2 times. So some of the comments I got were, well, that's really good, because it didn't happen before. So, if it's happening now, something must be different, which I suppose was a fair comment. But I felt so rough, We did manage to have a scan at 8 weeks to make sure, because previously I think, although the miscarriage had happened at 12 weeks, the actual little baby being hadn't made it past sort of 6 or 7 weeks. So I did have a scan at 8 weeks, and although it was reassuring, I was still like, well, yeah, but we've not made it to that 12-week mark. So I had morning sickness. I went off food, which is extremely good for me.
I know you, and you're like me. You like food.
I like my food, and it was the strangest thing to sort of look at, food, because we'd gone to Spain to visit my parents, and we always feast, and I'd sit there looking at this food that I knew I'd always enjoyed and always thought was amazing, and I'd be like, no, I can't face it. I can't face this. I'm going to lie down. So that was quite something. I kept on saying, well, it better be worth it. It better be worth, I've just passed on a beautiful steak or whatever. And
so when was this morning sickness? How many weeks are we at now in your pregnancy?
It was 8, 9, 10.
Right. Okay.
8, 9, 10, 11, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So from sort of finding out that I was pregnant till before the 12-week scan, which confirms that we'd kind of made it past that milestone, which we hadn't before.
Yeah. Okay. And so I know that we talked a little bit off mic before we came on to start recording and everything, and you'd listened to one of the earlier podcasts in the series, I think, when you were pregnant, about the epigeneticist podcast.
Yes.
And she talked a lot about morning sickness can sometimes be because you're not connecting to your baby. So just tell me a little bit about what your perspective on that.
Yeah, I found that really fascinating. I have to say, originally I kind of thought, well, no, of course I was connected to my baby. That's of course I was. That's what I've been wanting for the last 2 years. I've been wanting a baby. But then actually I thought about it, and probably at week 12, which is when we kind of crossed that milestone, the morning sickness disappeared. I was still off some foods, but the actual feeling like I was permanently hungover passed. And I thought, you know what, having listened to that podcast, there could be something in it, because suddenly I was accepting that it was happening and that it would happen. And then, and that morning sickness passed. So for me, I kind of thought, gosh, there must be something in it, in what was covered in that podcast, which was fascinating. Because as I said, I did think, well, no, one thing's the physical, because I saw it as, I saw morning sickness as being a physical thing, not necessarily tied to any emotions.
So now you're like emotionally connected to your baby. You were kind of up for loving this thing, whereas before maybe you didn't want to love it in case it was not going to be there and they were going to be hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In case I was going to be hurt, absolutely.
Yeah. So protecting yourself. So that's interesting. So I guess, all those women that have morning sickness, whether they're coming off the back of a few miscarriages themselves or whether they're, certainly in my first pregnancy, I miscarried my first pregnancy, and that sort of, you don't want to get your hopes up in case it doesn't pan out, and feeling of like, I'm pregnant, but I'm not going to get too excited about it because you never know.
No, exactly, absolutely,
And you're just protecting yourself, aren't you, from the hurt? Because
it's a natural, And I mean, I was still not, 100% sort of convinced until the 20-week scan. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God. So into your second trimester, you've had the 12-week scan, or you had that moment where it was kind of signed off, as it were. Yeah. How was your second trimester for you then?
It was fine. I can't remember it being there being much change, really. I suppose there were some physical changes, but again, because it wasn't, I didn't have a bump yet. There was nothing that you could see, so I could kind of just pretend I wasn't really. So I carried on with going into work and going to meetings and things like that, and I didn't really talk about it because it wasn't there to be talked about. So obviously at home and with friends and family and that, but again, I was trying to I'd always protect myself. I was always sort of like, well, let's not get too excited. Let's wait till that 20-week scan when so there's no way I didn't do any baby clothes shopping, any pram shopping. I didn't even think about it. There was no way I was going to allow myself to think about any of that. Obviously, I did stop activities such as mountain biking, but I carried on walking and hiking and doing things like that. So I remained active throughout.
Yeah.
So yes, I didn't find it hard in any way. I can probably say I was quite lucky.
Now, just thinking about the work aspects, you did just touch just now on the fact that you didn't mention stuff at work. So you're a managing director of a business. You're you run the show, and it's in apps, it's in technology. So I would imagine that's quite a male-dominated area.
It is indeed.
And so, I mean, I just wondered if you could just talk a little bit more about, how that is, why you decided. Why you felt that I think I can guess what you're going to say, but why you felt you needed to maybe hold that back, and how that was for you being a pregnant managing director in the tech industry.
Yeah. I think I might deal with it differently if there's another, but I think for the first one I felt not that it was unprofessional to talk about it, but it was kind of, I just felt it didn't have it didn't have a place. It didn't have it wasn't relevant. So whether it was when talking to suppliers or clients, when meeting them, I did a few presentations during my second trimester where actually I chose clothes that clearly, you could just think, I should put on some weight. Or, I don't think, I actively tried to not look pregnant. And a male friend of mine actually said, well, what do you feel it's unprofessional or something? What's wrong? Why aren't you telling everybody about it, sort of thing? And it made me think, I don't know, I just felt it didn't have a place. Which in a way is quite sad, I suppose, but I think it's because it's a male-dominated industry, and I didn't want people to think, either that I'd be sidetracked by by it all, or that suddenly I wouldn't have anything else to think about or talk about. Or
I know, certainly when because I spent some time in the workplace when I was in my second pregnancy, and the only topic of conversation is, when are you due? It's the only focus, and it's like, hello, you can talk to my brain, I'm here.
That's the things,
I'm not just this pregnant baby carrier thing.
Yes, I definitely felt that in the third trimester, definitely.
Did you?
Yeah.
So tell us about the third trimester. How, as the pregnancy was progressing, and I guess you were kind of starting to embrace it a bit more, were you? Or how was that going for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it kind of went from, let's see what happens, to, no, it's happening, but, we can't see it, so we can just pretend it's not happening, kind of thing. I was obviously excited, and I was... I was doing a lot of reading up on, what's happening with my body and all the different things, and, there's a twinge, could this be that, or whatever, things like that. But I think come the third trimester, I definitely completely embraced it. To be fair, that 20-week scan when you see the fully formed baby and, you know, all the checks were done and everything was okay, you know, all the boxes were ticked, it was, as far as we could tell, it was a healthy baby. And then I just felt amazing.
Really?
I just felt amazing. I started doing pregnancy yoga. I started doing loads of stretching at home. I had one of these, it's not what they call them, birthing balls, you know, bouncy gym ball things. And I basically spent a lot of time preparing myself physically and mentally in my own way. So I saw it as, I suppose, an adventure. And I'd call it a mission. So my husband and I do a lot of, you know, outdoor activities, as I've said. So we've done things like walking up, you know, the highest peaks in the UK, and I've, you know, biked up the highest peak in England with him. That entailed, you know, 6-7 hours of biking, pushing, carrying a bike up a mountain to then have a 20-minute knuckle ride down.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about it, is a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Part of a working day going up a mountain to then spend 20 minutes cycling down. But that's us, and he got me, you know, he got me up that mountain. He coached me up, essentially. So I sort of started looking at not so much pregnancy, but obviously childbirth as a bit of an adventure.
A bit of a mission, a bit of a
mission,
yeah,
a bit of a mission, I suppose.
And a 2-team one, like, you know, your husband helped you coach you up the mountain, you saw him as being your coach, your childbirth coach.
That's it, yeah. Because I think, to start off with, that was one of the things that I was more worried about, was him, how he was going to cope with me being in labour. Than I was about actual labour.
Okay.
It was quite bizarre, really, but that's how I was like, oh, well, how is he going to be, you know, how, because I know he's a little bit squeamish, and also obviously seeing your loved one going through something so intense could be quite difficult. So what I did actually was I signed us up to a hypnobirthing one-day course, and then I also signed us up to some NCT classes so we could meet people. Those were my sort of mission, and after that I felt that we were prepared, because the things that had been covered, particularly in the hypnobirthing one-day course, that gave me a lot to go on, and it made him realise, and it made him go from me at the beginning of the pregnancy saying, well, would you consider a home birth? And him saying, you are mental, no way. Why would you want to do that? And what do you mean you want to have a natural birth with no painkillers?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, woman? To actually, towards the end of my pregnancy, when we got, you know, when the time came to decide, to him going, no, I absolutely understand why you want a home birth, and I think it's the best, you know, it's the best thing for both of us. So
amazing, brilliant. So basically, you planned a home birth, and so leading up in the final weeks, I'm just wondering, you know, in terms of the emotional preparation, like, were you? It sounds like you just weren't worried about birth at all. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, I completely, and it came before it. The whole idea of birth being a completely natural thing, and a completely you shouldn't have to worry about it thing, I think comes from my mum, actually. So before I even went into looking at, you know, into reading up on natural childbirth and things like that, I can thank my mum for never making an issue of it, and always being positive about it. And whenever she's retold the stories of my birth or my sister's birth, it's always been well, you know, we just did it. And she, you know, born late 70s, and she was in Spain, and in Spain you got no gas and air, you got no painkillers of any sort, so they just weren't available like they were at the time in the UK. So she, you know, she's always said to me, I just did it because, you know, there was nothing else, and I just got on with it, you know.
Brilliant.
She never had any, you know, she's never said anything negative about it. And then also, funnily enough, and I think I was probably in my early 20s, when I said to somebody, well, you know, childbirth doesn't hurt. And this woman just looked at me. Where did you hear that? And I said, well, my mum's always told me that. She always says, you know, all this screaming and shouting that you see on the films, that's exaggerated, and that's not, you know, that's not real. And this woman was beside herself laughing. Kind of, you know, how can you have come to your early 20s and believe your mum saying that? So I think I can definitely thank my mum for planting an idea of it not being an issue, not being anything to be scared of. And then after that, during sort of preparation for childbirth, I did a lot of reading, you know, on, well, just how natural the whole process is and the fact that we're designed to do it. And
And so what was your due date? Let's talk about due dates.
Oh yes, due date's an interesting one. Due date was the 5th of May.
So I'm just, was baby on time, late, early?
Well, according to the official NHS due date, baby was nearly 2 weeks late.
Right, okay.
13 days, I think it was in the end. Yes, it was born on the 18th.
So tell me a little bit more about that. How did you manage that situation? What was...
Yeah, well, initially I found it, I decided I was going to stop work mid-April, or like not, you know, stop going into the office. So I'd still be checking emails and things at home, but I'd be taking it easy so I didn't have to, do my amazing 15-minute commute and walk through flights of stairs and things like that. And I found the idea of winding down quite hard. But then, you know, I got into that and that was fine. And then from the beginning, I'd not seen the 5th of May as the day that baby was going to arrive. Okay. I'd always thought, baby's going to be over, you know, babies are never on time, you know, it could be early, could be late. So I personally didn't have a fixation on that date. I didn't tell people an actual date. I kind of went, around about May, beginning mid-May, that's when baby should arrive. And I didn't sort of let it, I just didn't let it be an issue. The date wasn't a thing for me. Baby would, you know, as far as I was concerned, baby would come when baby was going to come. I was very comfortable up until the day I gave birth. I was still mobile. I didn't have any pains or aches. I was very lucky in that sense. I kept active and flexible and stuff. So I wasn't sort of pregnant and thinking, get this baby out of me.
Yeah.
We were actually quite cozy. But then just before my due date, my husband came off his mountain bike and injured his shoulder. He broke his collarbone. As you do.
Yeah, as you do.
So what happened then was that I wasn't able to be the pregnant princess that I wanted to be. So, you know, walk into the house, sit down and say, take my shoes off, I can't reach, and things like that.
Yeah.
Because actually he couldn't do anything and he was in terrible pain. So I found myself doing lots of things that I had planned to kind of get out of doing. Like
cooking dinner and housework, all that kind of stuff.
Taking the rubbish out, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, I had to help dress him. I had to put his socks on. I had to
my goodness.
Shirt, because he couldn't do all of these. And, you know, I had to move chairs around if he needed help with that. And, so then 2 weeks passed and he went back to the doctors and he was told that basically the break was really bad. It hadn't healed in those 2 weeks and that he needed an operation the next day.
Oh, my goodness.
And by this time, I'm about 9 or 10 days overdue. And I'm going to hospital more than I want to go because obviously I'd arranged for a home birth.
And now you're going in every 5 minutes for him.
And everyone's saying, oh, well, you're in the right place. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm meant to be at home. I'm not meant to be in hospital to have this baby. So basically he went under general anaesthetic and they, you know, operated on him the next day. And I reckon baby just had to wait a bit longer. Obviously, one of our things was, well, what happens if baby comes when... And I said to my husband, I said, I'm pretty sure that baby's not going to come out and make an appearance whilst you're under general anaesthetic. There's just something about it. I was just like, I don't think this is going to happen. I probably have to do a little shout out to the community midwives in our area because they were amazing about the whole idea of home birth from the start. They were super supportive, and then also with regards to dealing with being overdue. So he went and he had his operation on the Thursday, and on the Sunday I'd been told it had been suggested that because I think it was 40 plus 12, that I'd go into hospital to be monitored, see how things were going. I think, I had quick chat with yourself, because obviously you'd been through that experience of going. And I went in, and it was a Sunday, so it was relatively quiet. I went in with my husband. I didn't look at them, so you get monitored. So they put the belly band around your belly to monitor and stuff. And, I'd been asked if you had any Braxton Hicks, if you felt anything, and all of this. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I can't really, I can't tell a difference. No, as far as I'm concerned, nothing's really happening yet. I don't think baby's ready. And at this point is when the midwife left me there with a machine, plugged into the machine, and then she came back, and then she looked at the piece of paper that the machine produces. There were these little peaks in the graph, and she goes, "Do you know what these are?" And I'm like, "No idea." What? She goes, "You are actually having contractions, Lucy." Like, oh, am I? And I kind of went, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? Things might actually start happening. And she was like, well, can't you feel anything? And I said, well, not really. I'm heavily pregnant, so there's things happening, but no. They did the vaginal examination. The consultant came along. She was very keen for me to, when I said home birth, she kind of looked at me like, yeah. And I was no, I'm having a home birth. That's what's happening. And she basically got me to agree to come in the following day, for a scan and some more monitoring and stuff. Even though the monitoring that we'd had said that myself and baby were absolutely fine and healthy. At this point, there was a bit of the consultant didn't go into using super scary language, but I could feel that we were going that way. So she said various times, this is just baby is fine now in this point in time at this moment. And I kind of thought, well, I can see what she's saying, things do change, but at the same time, do you really have to, tell me about it like this? It's not, I'm quite clearly healthy and fine, and so's baby. And so anyway, I got sent home with some aromatherapy oils that they'd made up for me. And that night, after having a meal, kind of thought, ooh, yeah, that's a bit more than what I'd felt before. So about 10 o'clock on the Sunday night, that's when I started recording contractions.
And I'm thinking you may have been using an app to do that. Is that right?
Yes. And I've got all the data, which is really to look back on.
I will get all the details on these apps, ladies, so that you can, because I use loads of apps. We had a lot of conversations about apps, didn't we? So we'll get those apps and have those on the blog show notes.
So yes, and obviously they'd sort of said to me, you're coming in tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning to get these, further monitoring. But what happened was, as I said, at 10 o'clock I started recording contractions. We went to bed about 3 o'clock maybe. I thought, oh, this is getting a bit, this is ramping up now. So I was pacing up and down our bedroom in the dark. And then I was getting quite excited, because I was like, oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen any minute now. So I did wake up my husband and say, right, who, by the way, at this point was obviously all stitched up from his operation and had spent a couple of nights sleeping in a chair because he couldn't sleep in bed.
Goodness.
So I was like, right, well, how about we go down to the living room and we set everything up, because I was very excited about getting all the candles out and getting all of that sorted. And he was like, oh yeah, okay. So he actually came downstairs in the living room, sat in an armchair and fell asleep, which is fine. Which is fine, because at the end of the day, he couldn't really do anything else.
No.
And I think I might have dozed off, and I might have listened to some music, and as I say, it was just this sort of like excitement building up of, oh, it's happening. I'm actually, in a way, if anyone's ever sort of taken part in a race, in like, I don't know, a marathon or a half marathon or a 10K or a bike race, anything like that, those pre-race nerves that you get, butterflies, sort of
yeah.
that sort of like, oh, it's happening, what's going to happen. So the morning came. And obviously I was aware that the hospital wanted me to go back in. And what I did was I phoned the midwife unit, and I basically said, been having contractions all night. No, I'm not coming in, because I'm not getting in a car to come into hospital, because obviously I'm booked in for a home birth, and that would just completely ruin the mood and ruin the rhythm, the natural rhythm. They kind of and ahed about that, and I basically told them, no, I am not coming in. Please, can you send my community midwife to come and see me? If you're worried and you want me to have a check of any sort, then come to me, basically. As I said, there was no way I was going to get in the car and go anywhere. I just wanted to be at home. So yes, I had aromatherapy baths, which helped me. I actually fell asleep in the bath whilst having.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Are you doing anything? Like you said, you went to a hypnobirthing course. So are you using breathing techniques? Are there affirmations? I don't know. What are you doing?
There were, I think, affirmations. I'd built those affirmations, so I kind of had the self-belief that had been done previously. So it was breathing, the breathing exercises. That's what got me through. And literally, it wasn't, it was just deep breathing and just working through. And if we were chatting, because my mum was with us as well, so if I was chatting to Nick and Mum, and a contraction came along, I'd just put my hand up so that they'd know what was going on, and I'd just go into breathing, deep breaths, and then I'd come out of it, and then we'd carry on with whatever we were doing, which was, just sitting around. And I didn't manage to go for a walk because I think I was so excited that it was going to happen. That I was like, no, I've got to stay at home. I can't leave the house.
And what were those contractions like for you? Were they, when you were breathing through them, how would you describe them?
I'd describe them as my body trying to get my baby out. So yeah, I suppose as a rush, I guess is the way I describe them. A rush at this, but particularly at the beginning, it was more of a energy going through your body sort of thing. I know some people would be like, oh yeah, roll your eyes, that's not how it feels, but it was a rush. Particularly those early on ones were just wait a minute, body's doing something now, and just breathe through it and not focus on it being energy running through your body. That's what I did a lot of.
Okay.
And then I also had music in the background, so I'd chosen some sort of chill out, loungy type things. So I had my music on all the time. And then when I did have the aromatherapy baths, what I had done was I'd listened to a lot of tracks that the hypnobirthing classes had provided. So it's just like a 15-minute piano track. And whilst I'd been listening to those whilst pregnant, I used to fall asleep. I kind of put it down to just the fact that I could fall asleep anyway. But I think as it happens, there was something to it, because I'd get in the bath with the aromatherapy oils, I'd put the track on, and I was off. Wow. And that actually physically gave me a breather, and gave me an opportunity to recover and get back up.
Okay, so let's get back to labour. How was that progressing for you then, labour?
I suppose in some people's books it was slow, but for me I wasn't in a rush, and that's just
you're Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. So that laid back, it'll happen when it happens. Yeah, there were people involved who were kind of like, well, you've been, and they call them pains. You've been suffering pains for over 10 hours now, and oh dear, well, shouldn't they might be able to help you along, and I was kind of like, no. One, I'm not calling them pains. Two, well, it takes as long as it takes. It's not. I've had a couple of I had a check with a midwife, and she was happy about baby, and so long as baby and I were fine, as far as I was concerned, it could take as long as it wanted to, really. Something actually again about language. On a couple of occasions, both my mum and my husband, bless them, did sort of come up to me and say, oh my God, you must be exhausted. And I told them off, basically. Oh, I am not exhausted. I'm a little tired, but no, I am not exhausted. Do not use that word. Well, do not use that word in my presence, sort of thing. Because it was like, well, let's not talk about being exhausted, because that might actually make me think I am exhausted. Yeah. Or realise that I am. And basically things then kind of ramped up on the Monday. Throughout the day, I'd been watching films and bits and bobs, and then come the evening, it was starting to get pretty intense. I think we'd made one call to the hospital to say, can you send the midwife out? They'd spoken to me, and basically they said, oh, just have a bath. So I had another aromatherapy bath. And then we made another call, and I think, because basically my mum and my husband were taking it in turns to be with me in the living room, which had 50 odd, 100 candles on.
Wow.
It was on, ramped up, the lights were dimmed, I had my music on in the background. Apparently it was really, really hot in there. And at this point, I think my husband was taking a break, my mum was with me, and I said to her, Mum, let's set this up because I think this is happening. Kind of looked at me like, what do you mean set things up? I was like, no, we need to, put the dust sheet down on the floor, we need to put the cover on. I had a throw to stand on. This is happening now, and let's phone the midwife, let's phone the hospital. So she phoned the hospital herself, and then of course they insist that they speak to the lady who's giving birth. And at this point I was asked a couple of questions, and I now realise that obviously they were kind of testing me to see how real and how close birth was actually. So at one point this lady was asking me to spell my surname, which is the longest surname in the world.
Just tell everybody what your surname is so they can appreciate why I'm laughing.
Herreras Griffith. So HERRAS-GRIFFITHS. When you're having contractions and somebody's asking you to spell that, you just thinking you can
go jump.
Yeah. And then this midwife also had the audacity to ask me what was happening, because I kept on saying, it's happening. And she said, what's happening, Doc? What's happening? You go, this woman's stupid or what? I'm having a baby.
I'm in labour.
Well, you're a midwife.
Yeah, why am I calling you?
It's like, I'm not ordering a takeaway here. What do you think is happening? Oh dear. So yeah, and obviously looking back, I now realise that she was asking all these questions to gauge how near to actual childbirth I was, and whether she did need to send the midwife over. So I think she asked me what was going on first. Then she asked me to spell my name, and at that point I passed her on to my mum. I think I even spoke to her mum in Spanish. Kind of said, just you deal with her. I can't do this. I can't spell my name now. And so they said, oh well, we'll get someone to give you a call, one of the community midwife team. And I think at about 8 o'clock there was a knock on the door, at which time Mum and I had set up in the living room, and the lovely midwife came in. Interestingly, there was no continuity throughout my pregnancy care, so I'd never met this lady before in my life. Luckily, I'm quite uninhibited, I suppose you could say, so I didn't really have a problem about her checking on me or her seeing me naked or anything like that. To be fair, I didn't even know she was in the room because when she first arrived, because I was going through quite a strong contraction. Luckily for me, she'd picked up my birthing plan. I had an A4 birthing plan, and once my contraction had finished and I looked over, and she said, hi, my name's Natalie, I've just read your plan, everything, happy with all of that, are you okay if I do an examination now? And I was like, yeah, okay. And one of the things in my plan was, if you do a check on me, basically I don't want to know how far dilated I am, whether I'm not. I don't want to know. Particularly, I don't want to know, or if you tell me how far along I am, kind of choose your words. Don't tell me you're only 5 or 6 or whatever. Because I thought that would hold me back, and basically it got more and more intense. I ended up on all fours with my elbows on a big beanbag. My husband was on the beanbag as well, the poor man with his broken shoulder.
Oh, bless him.
And I was just holding on to him, and eventually I came to a point where I was no longer breathing deeply and it's not that I didn't remain calm. I did remain calm, but I kind of went primal.
Good for you.
Describe it. I think I spotted where my transition happened, because sometimes I know, but that they describe women kind of go, right, I've had it, I can't do this anymore, sort of thing. And that's the point where, you know, it's about to like really start to kick off. And basically I was standing and I was wiggling my hips. And at that point I thought, and I said out loud, I said, do you know what? I really feel like swearing now. Swear. And at that point the midwife was brilliant. She basically she suggested that I went back to my deep breaths, that I went back to, you know, following the music that was on, and that I went back to just chilling essentially. And basically, so after that, that's when I became primal. And I don't think the midwife thought that it was happening quite as soon, and possibly because I had been so relaxed and I had been so sort of chilled. So again, she sort of checked, and then next thing you know, she kind of went, right, this baby's coming now. I'm just going to go to the car to get a few things. And at that point, I kind of went, can you just tell me, Mum, that it's happening? Because my mum had gone upstairs, she was on a break, and she wants to be present. And there was a faff around getting a second midwife, because when you have a home birth, at least in our area, a second midwife is called before the birth, so that there's one for mum and one for baby. And basically, so she'd run off. I think she tried to contact this midwife who was on call, and it hadn't happened. And then I'd started pushing, not pushing, but, you know, because I don't think I pushed, it was my body doing it all. It had taken over by then. And her mobile went off. So I'm on all fours, she's sort of behind, checking that everything's progressing okay. And the mobile phone rings, and she kind of answers it. She's like, yes. And she's like, right, okay, well, I am actually delivering a baby as you speak. So yeah, if you can make it, she can. If not, you know, this is happening. Bye.
Brilliant. Oh dear.
I did kind of catch them unawares. The other thing that made me kind of giggle was the fact that it basically happened a lot quicker than she thought. So from doing checks sort of thing, and whether she was going by how I was and physically, to actually how, you know, when baby decided to arrive and he was ready, he did. So
wow.
So yes, it was quite something. There was one thing which I thought was really lovely of her. In my birth plan, I did have, you know, I would like to, when baby's kind of starting to pop out, I would like to feel my baby. And guess what? She remembered that, because obviously at that time I don't remember things. You know, you're not going to remember that. And she said, you know, Lucy, if you want to feel your baby's head, this is when you want to be doing it. And that was just the most amazing, incredible thing ever, basically, to put my hand down and feel my baby's head coming out of my body was just amazing. And I'm so thankful to her for having remembered to
amazing
to say that. So basically what happened was we started crowning, and she coached me through the crowning, breathing wise. I was able to remain in control of my body, I guess. And he basically just popped out in one push.
Wow.
You know, I had been pushing quite a lot, and then but it wasn't sort of a head and then the rest of the body. He just flew out, and just amazing. Came onto me. I had him on me once I managed to like roll around, and then within 5-10 minutes of having him on me, I delivered the placenta naturally. Again, it just popped out. It just happened. But it was just the most incredible experience. It was an incredible experience.
So how long did that last? I lost track, I have to say, when you were talking.
So from the sort of the hardcore, you know, pushing bit was probably about half an hour, I think she said. Okay. Midwife said. So the really intense primal bit was about 20 minutes to half an hour. My mum, my husband and myself agreed that it felt like a bit longer. But she was pretty sure that it was just 20 minutes to half an hour. But from the very start of me recording my contractions, that was 10 o'clock on the Sunday, and he arrived 11 o'clock on the Monday, the night. So that was 25 hours of...
That's
of an experience, basically.
So when you say you were primal, that's just like, you know, what do you mean by primal?
Just letting my body go with it, and grunting.
Yeah.
laughing, grunting, and my husband said, "I have never seen you pull such, faces for pulling, just amazing." And I just losing myself to my body, just losing myself to the power of my body doing what it was doing, basically, because you don't have control over it. And I think if you can let go, and if you're not, if there is no fear, and if there's complete trust, then it just takes over. And I can remember also saying something like, "Oh, I was going to breathe this baby out." I watched a lot of videos and a lot of sort of like women giving birth in different ways. And I was jokingly saying, "Oh, there's me thinking I was going to breathe it out," and it was the way it was because that's how I needed it to be, really. Yeah. And from the start, I'd sort of thought, I want to be, because people would say, "Oh, you're having you're having a water birth," and I was like, no, I just want to go with it naturally, as in cavemen didn't have water, didn't have home births with pools, sort of thing, and I just felt that that's how I wanted to do it, just completely as it was kind of meant to be, really.
So, and you did it, amazing.
Yes, I did. Not once did I think I need pain relief. Not once. That was something as well in my plan. Do not offer me pain relief. I will ask for it if I need it. And there was no. I didn't need any stitches. Just like bruises. And it was just an amazing. I did it. I did it.
And you didn't know what you were having, did you?
No, I didn't. Yeah, it was. We decided we'd leave it as a surprise. So that was amazing as well, because I'd asked for my husband to announce it.
Yeah.
And we had a boy name and a girl name. And basically, when he held, when we realised it was a boy, he basically said, we've had a Sebastian.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, it was just it was incredible, and to see, it was interesting actually. The emotions were. I didn't cry. I don't think I was too exhausted to cry, or possibly a bit in shock, because suddenly it was like, oh yeah, I've just achieved everything I've been working up to, which was having a home natural birth and blah blah blah. Now I've got a baby to take care of.
Oh crap!
I'd not thought about this bit. So I think I was possibly a bit in awe. But yeah, my husband was definitely, and I'm sure he won't mind saying he did cry. And every time he looked over at us, it was just tears. Basically.
Oh, tears of
amazing,
joy.
amazing, yeah.
Amazing. So, sort of looking back, I mean, it sounds to me like even you think of your birth now, and it's this really kind of amazing event that completely fires you up even now.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't know, to other women, kind of preparing or. With birth looming, what would you be saying to them? How what else can you? I mean, you've shared so much about your journey, but is there anything else that maybe you feel you haven't shared that might be worth that would help somebody?
I think for me, it really is about just trusting your body. This is what we've been designed for. Basically, this is not what we've been put on earth for. So it sounds a little bit to take it easy, believe in yourself, and take it easy, and don't let doubt creep in, because the moment doubt creeps in, that's when things start going other ways, and I know that even parallel of mountain biking, I know that the moment I doubt myself on my bike, I'm likely to come off it. I'm likely to the moment I go, oh, this is a bit scary, that's when things might go a bit wrong. So I think if you're able to keep doubt out of your mind, and it's not easy, but I think that's something that all along I had no doubt that I could do. There's no doubt.
And it's about staying in the zone, isn't it? Staying present. Like when you're biking down a mountain really quickly, you're not thinking about where you're going to turn. You're literally just doing it in the moment.
Yes.
And I think birth is the same. If you just stay in the moment.
Yeah, don't think ahead. There's no, and I didn't think of the end line or what might happen next or anything like that. Yeah, it's definitely being present in the moment and
just
not,
being.
Yeah, just being there. I know it sounds, it might
sounds corny, I know, but it's just so true. It's just so true.
Yeah. And I think again, I had amazing support from midwives, from my partner, from my mum. There were some people who doubted, the whole first first baby, first birth at home. But, well, I did it, so there.
Good for you. Well, Lucy, thank you so much for sharing your pregnancy journey, the miscarriage stuff, your birth experience. It's all just been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No problem at all. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Lucy sharing her positive birth story. Now, during our chat, she did mention that she was using some apps during her labour to measure the contractions. So I did ask her about apps because she is the managing director of an app company after all. So I thought that this would be entirely relevant to ask her such a question. And she's come back to me and said that the app that she used to count her contractions was called Full Term. And then she said she also started using Baby Connect when he was born to record feeds, nappy changes, sleep. And she says she still uses it today, but mainly to record sleep. Now, Baby Connect is one that I was a huge fan of, and I used it for both of my babies, and it really helped me to track things like milk, sleep, which boob you're breastfeeding from, or what you did last, so you can remember, because who can remember that kind of stuff, right? And all sorts. You can measure weight and all that kind of stuff, injections at the doctor. So I found it invaluable to use when I was when my little newborns arrived into the world. So those are the apps that Lucy was using. So I hope that you find that useful in some way. Now, Lucy is a member of the Fear-Free Childbirth Facebook community. So if you did want to answer any questions, I'm sure that she wouldn't mind answering a few of your questions if you did have anything you wanted to ask her after listening to her birth story. She's always diving in, taking part in chats anyway. So do come and join us in the Fear-Free Childbirth Facebook community. If you want to get an invite, then just sign up for the community at the homepage of fearfreechildbirth.com and you'll be let right in. We'd love to have you there. Okay, that's it for this week. Until next time, bye for now. You've just been listening to me, Alexia Leachman, here on the Fear-Free Childbirth podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, this is just a wee reminder that if you'd like to listen to bonus podcast episodes and have access to loads of birth preparation downloads, my video mini-series on reducing your fears and so much more, then join the Fearless Mammoship community today. You can join at fearfreechildbirth.com. Until next time, bye for now.